It's great to welcome back to the program today Ben Cohen, who is the co-founder of Ben and Jerry's and also a national co-chair for Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign. He's known Bernie for a long time, right? I mean, how long have you known him at this point?
I guess I've known Bernie for about 40 years. Ben and Jerry started out at about the same time that he won a very improbable victory over a old crony Democratic Party machine mayor and became mayor of Burlington.
And what would you say has changed from 2016 to 2020 in terms of either the issues, the personalities, the name recognition? I mean, how is 2020 for Bernie different than 4 years ago?
Well, one of the interesting things about Bernie is that he has been incredibly consistent in his beliefs and in his values and in what he's been promoting in terms of what would be good for the country for those last 40 years. But since 2016, I think the big difference is that his name recognition is huge. And, clearly he's already leading the country based on all the other candidates that have been kind of following the positions that he staked out in 2016. You know, I firmly believe that if the media gave Bernie the same amount of coverage they gave Trump in the 2016 election, that Bernie would be president today. So I think this time around, he's starting off way ahead of the game in terms of name recognition, in terms of an organization, a campaign organization. He's way, way ahead. He was kind of building it on the fly last time around. So, those of us working on the campaign are feeling really, really good.
Yeah, one of the things I've been talking about is that thanks to Bernie, a lot of ideas that were not common ideas in the Democratic field in 2016 have been significantly mainstreamed. So whether they really support it or not, most of the Democratic candidates now are at least paying lip service to the idea of Medicare for all or some other system that will achieve full coverage. When we talk about tuition-free public colleges and universities, there's a lot of issues that we can thank Bernie for mainstreaming 4 years ago. But what I wonder is whether the fact that those ideas have been mainstreamed in some way hurts Bernie by making the ideas no longer unique to Bernie in the Democratic field.
Well, it's interesting. I think that being authentic and being the originator goes a long way with the public. Clearly, Bernie isn't just jumping on the bandwagon. He's promoting ideas that he has deeply believed in and deeply fought for these past 40 years. So I think we welcome all these other candidates supporting these incredibly good policy initiatives. And I look forward to Bernie coming out with even more and better ones.
Did you see the town hall that Bernie did on CNN? I guess now it was a couple of weeks ago.
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Okay. So I'll frame the question. I'm glad I asked so I can frame the question correctly. Do you feel as though so far the Democratic National Committee is interfering in the primary in any way similar to what we saw in 2016? Or do you believe that they are staying out of it to the extent of picking a favorite or leaning on someone or against somebody else? What's your assessment of their presence and role in the primary so far?
I believe the primary so far, is just barely getting underway.
Yeah.
And I think the DNC has been even-handed. I certainly am aware that there's kind of two wings in the Democratic Party. One continues to be the Hillary wing, and I imagine that there's a lot of people on the DNC that are in that wing, which I think is now going to become the Biden wing. But thanks to an incredible amount of work by a whole lot of people since the last Democratic convention, there have been some very significant changes in the DNC. Particularly in terms of super delegates not being able to vote on the first round of voting at the convention, and I also think that since since their finger on the scale, or shall I say their huge foot on the scale was exposed last time around, I think they're a lot more sensitive to making sure that doesn't happen this time around.
Yeah, I hope you're right. It's sort of sad that it took this shameful public thing that took place in order for some of these rules to be changed and for hopefully things to be moved around. But I guess it's better than not having the changes, one way or the other. You mentioned Joe Biden. Let me talk about Joe Biden a little bit. As I told my audience last week, Bernie Sanders right now is leading basically every poll for the 2020 Democratic primary, specifically among candidates who have declared. Joe Biden has not declared as of when you and I are talking right now, but in just about every one of those polls, Joe Biden is polling ahead of Bernie. Now, there's one interpretation of those polls, which is that's basically name recognition. And if Biden declares, as soon as people realize he's not actually that progressive, his support will go down. The other side is if Joe Biden's doing this well now, when he declares, he's going to run away with it. What do you think?
I think clearly the energy amongst the Democratic rank and file actually get out there and volunteer and work for candidates, and that donate small dollar donations to candidates is in favor of Bernie and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. There's no way that Biden is ever going to turn out the kind of crowds that Bernie has turned out. And actually, if you look at the most recent poll, which I think was by Emerson College, amongst Wisconsin voters, Bernie even comes out ahead of Biden.
Specifically in Wisconsin, you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
correct.
I haven't seen that one. What do you think is responsible for the strong polling numbers of Joe Biden?
I think it's name recognition. I think that if you just look at even Republicans and Democrats, everybody is saying we don't want Washington insiders, and Biden is kind of the ultimate Washington insider. I have no doubt that he will get a large hunk of big money donations. But big money donations, also known as bribery, is not what's going to sway the voting public this time around.
What will they be swayed by? Will it be a particular issue? Will it be personality? Will it be who can best go up against Donald Trump, which is a consideration for some voters?
Well, I think getting Donald Trump out of office, as Bernie himself has said, is essentially job one. And I think the way to do that is to energize a huge base of supporters. And, kind of middle of the road kind of centrist policies is not going to do that. The other interesting thing is that there's a significant overlap between Trump voters and Bernie voters. voters.
Really?
And yeah, and it's not surprising if you just listen to Trump's election rhetoric last time around. He was for the little guy. He was for the working people. He was not going to cut your Social Security.
Well, Ben,
He
maybe
was
is it fair to say, I don't want to interrupt. Is it fair to say Trump claimed to be those things? Maybe is more precise.
exactly. He claimed to be those things, and voters that wanted those things had a choice of either Trump the insurgent or Hillary the establishment, status quo, business as usual politician.
Mm.
And so they voted for God, anything but the status quo. This time around, I think Trump voters, many of them have seen that the rhetoric does not match the reality. And if they truly want somebody who's out for the interests of the little guy, it's Bernie.
Okay, let's talk about something that in some left-wing circles, I guess you're not supposed to talk about, but I really want to talk about it with you, particularly because of how long you've known Bernie, which is the contingent of 2016 Bernie supporters that either voted for a third-party candidate for Donald Trump or stayed home. Now, just so you know, because you may, our conversation was years ago, I supported Bernie Sanders in the primary and ultimately cast a vote for Hillary Clinton in Massachusetts, where I live, in 2016. Question one, are you concerned about that contingent in 2020? Question two, what do you think drives that decision to support Bernie Sanders in the primary and then to do something other than voting for the Democratic nominee when it gets to the general election?
Well, to support Bernie Sanders in the primary, I certainly understand that one.
Okay.
You're suggesting you're positing the situation whereby Bernie does not win the primary, and then would people who voted for him in the primary vote for a different Democrat?
It's not so much that I'm
In
positing it. I'm sort of thinking back to the small contingent that did that in 2016 and the sort of what may be disproportionate coverage of them given their actual size.
Well, I think, well, last time around, nobody thought there was a chance in hell that Trump was going to get elected.
Yes.
So they didn't see a vote. They didn't see sitting the election out as creating the problem that we've got today. This time around, it's going to be pretty clear to everybody that if you sit it out, we've got the same horror that we have today, and ain't nobody going to be sitting this election out.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, there were some people last election who said, if it's not someone truly progressive, it's Hillary or Trump. Yes, they're sort of different, but by and large, it's not effectively different. Now that we see what's happened with the Supreme Court, we're seeing what's happened with climate change, or ignoring actually the threat of climate change. We're seeing what's happening with the swamp filling. You're suggesting that nobody at this point would think that it's sort of irrelevant who wins if it's not a truly progressive candidate like Bernie, that people would realize the importance of participating and voting no matter who the nominee is.
Well, and Bernie has said it in so many words.
That's true.
That he will support whoever the Democratic nominee is, that the most important thing we can do for our country is to get Trump out of office.
What is next for the campaign in terms of messaging and strategy? We know lots of Bernie's most important issues, Medicare for all, is sort of at the forefront there. What shifts can we expect in terms of the focus on issues, if any, in the coming months?
I'm not really aware of much that's coming down the pike. I mean, this is like the question that I always get about what's the new flavor coming out. If I knew, I couldn't tell you. but I think what is really different this time around,
Yeah.
and what is really exciting to me this time around, is the diversity in terms of race and gender and ethnicity in Bernie's team. And it is so wonderful to be working with my fellow co-chairs, uh, Julian, the mayor of Puerto Rico, Ro Khanna, an Indian by ancestry, a congressperson from California, and our the queen of the co-chairs, Nina Turner, Senator Nina Turner from Cleveland, an African American woman, and it's a beautiful thing to see, and you know, and I'm just so excited about the way that Bernie has embraced diversity.
Well, we have been following the campaign closely, and of course, we will continue to do it. We've been speaking with one of Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign national co-chairs, Ben Cohen. Really appreciate you talking to me once again, Ben.
Good talking to you, David.